Good morning. So the city of Spare Room is under lockdown. In that case, I have to come to you from my kitchen. Today I'm going to be going over with you the best way to summarize a selection, which is the lesson for Friday. You can refer to pages 44 to 45 in your Fusions textbook. In fact, I would prefer that you do that before you watch the video. So if you haven't already done so, please take a look at these pages. Okay, it goes over summarizing your selection. I do not feel that the book really does a great job on explaining how to find the important details. It's really hard sometimes to decide which details are important and which details aren't. So that's what I hope this video will help clarify for you. Remember that a summary should be no more than a third of the size of the original selection, approximately. It's not a written in stone. The first thing that you should do before you start a summary is to do your pre-reading suggestions that were in Chapter 2 that we covered in class, Approaches to Reading and Writing. There are always little introduction sections in the beginning of all of our reading selections that tell you a little bit more about the author and about where this selection was first published. Remember, you're going to review the title, you're going to learn about the author by doing that. You're going to preview the text. Often a lot of our selections that we read, especially the ones that we're going to be using for summarizing, will have vocabulary words at the end of the selection on the last page of the selection. Those are always good to go over before you start reading the selection. And you should ask yourself, as the book says, a little bit about what do I already know about this topic, if anything. You might not know anything, but if you do, it's a good thing to think about what you already know. So please make sure you do the pre-reading steps first. Then you're going to read the entire selection through first without stopping. As we discussed in class, this gives you a chance to just absorb the whole selection without stopping and asking yourself questions and thinking about main ideas and stuff like that. Once you have completed reading the selection, you're going to identify the thesis of the selection. That's the main idea of the entire piece. Okay, and once you have identified that and written it down, go back and you can always reread through and see if you're right, or you can wait till you do the next step. The next step would be to go through and ask yourself, I'm just going to pick any random selection that we have here because it doesn't really matter. Go through and ask yourself, what is the main idea of each paragraph? Okay, so go through paragraph by paragraph, not necessarily including the introduction, but once you get to the body paragraphs. Because if you remember, going back to our 5-paragraph sample essay, if you remember, the main idea of each paragraph is, well, it's not always going to be stated, but for the paragraphs that I've chosen, or the selections I've chosen for your summaries, there is a main idea stated for each paragraph. And you're going to go through paragraph by paragraph and see if you can find the main idea, because those are going to be the major details that the author wanted to make sure that they covered. Okay, so that's what the book calls the most important details. Those are going to be your major details. Once you have identified the major details of your body paragraphs, go back and reread the essay and make sure that your thesis statement was accurate and that your major details were accurate. Once you have all of that information, you can begin writing out your summary. Well, before you do, I just want to point out that if you need to go back over major and minor details, you can find those on page 117 of your textbook. And you can also think about or rewatch the video on writing your essay, because as a writer, you also have major and minor details. Okay, then you are going to be ready to start writing your summary. First of all, the summary should be written in your own words. You're paraphrasing what the author said. A summary is not a place for a direct quote. You might include some of those in your own writing of your own essay, but in a summary, you're not going to include direct quotes. It's all going to be in your own words. The first sentence of your summary should be the main idea, and it should include the title of the selection, the author, and the author's thesis statement. And again, if you go back to those pages 44 and 45 of your textbook on summarizing, their sample summary, the writer of the summary did exactly that. The remaining sentences in your paragraph are going to be each of the major details that you deciphered from each of the paragraphs. Once you have all of that down, you're going to finish up with a concluding sentence. Now, as we've talked about, one of the easiest ways to write a concluding sentence is to just restate the thesis in other words. You can also sum up the information that was given in some way, but that's really the easiest way to do that. Okay, so you should have one paragraph with an introductory or topic sentence that includes the title of the selection, the author, and the thesis. Your remaining sentences are going to be the major details, and then you'll have a summary sentence which you can restate the author's thesis again.